It's better from here. Hey, before we get started, let's give a huge round of applause to Mario and the Mobile Monday team for the benefits. We got pizza, we got beer, we got interesting people. Should we talk to?
Yeah. I guess have them sit down and then introduce yourself.
So, pump down, come on up. Let's see if we can navigate ourselves on stage here. All right. So we have a really interesting discussion tonight to talk about development and innovation. Oh, you want to I'm sorry. I'm sorry, we didn't see there. Go ahead. John, why don't you get that? Yeah, there you go. You gotta be able to count to five.
Make sure.
There you go. Okay. Now we kind of all of our panelists on stage.
Yeah, careful.
So the topic tonight is to talk about development of mobile devices and wearable devices and innovations in those fields. So we have a great, really interesting panel tonight. We'll start down there. We have Larry, who's with BlackBerry. We have John, who just heard the representation with Canonical. We have Simon with Telefonica. We have Ethan, who's with Basis Science. We have John, who's with ZTE. So we have representatives from, I think, a really nice broad spectrum of device manufacturers, OEMs, and operators. So it should be an interesting topic. So we have a couple of questions I'd like to get these guys to answer, and then we'll open the floor for discussions. So please save your questions towards the end. We'll have lots of time for that. So to kick off the conversation on the topic of development and innovation, I want to start off with the guys who are device manufacturers, specifically ZTE and BlackBerry, because you guys are kind of the established players in this space. But I want to hear everybody's thoughts on it. The current mental model in the software development space is that the speed at which software gets developed is speeding up constantly. And that's through the use of better tools, better methodologies, better established tools. It's getting there. So how do you, as a device manufacturer that's already established that has support both hardware and software, how do you iterate rapidly enough on the hardware side to keep up with the incredible fast pace of change with software, and more importantly, with the feedback that you're getting from the marketplace? So, what Larry's saying.
Am I on? Okay, there we go. So as a guy from BlackBerry, this is a really easy question because the way we do this is in the middle of the most heated cell phone war. We stop everything we're doing and start a whole new platform. So that's what we did. I don't necessarily recommend that to other people. It's quite a lot of work to do, but it's a great question. And it's actually the reason we had to adopt a whole new OS, is the BlackBerry OS, as we call it, the Java-based OS we have, just couldn't scale. So what we did is we adopted a required QNX. That's RTOS for, where is Mario? So I know what an RTOS is. So we have QNX, we acquired QNX, and we took their RTOS and embedded that into our devices and started building products from there. So and it's just still at the early stages, as many of you guys know, I'm sure.
So for ZTE, we primarily develop Android smartphones. Probably may or may not have heard of us, but we're actually the fourth largest Android, smartphone OEM in the world. 50% of our phones approximately are sold in China, so and outside of China, mostly operator branded. But in terms of innovation and time to market, this past February Mobile World Congress, we launched the first Firefox OS smartphone, HTML5 based smartphone, and we really relied on our partners with Qualcomm, Mozilla, and Telefonica to be our first launch partners. So from there, different elements brought in parts of that innovation, I guess, in terms of bringing this new operating system to task. Qualcomm certainly wants to sell their chipsets to as many operating systems as possible, whatever the market will support. Telefonica and operators in general want a diversity of platforms, not necessarily beholden to the duopoly of iOS and Android. And certainly for ZTE, we're very operating driven, so we want to do standpoint, there are a variety of players in the ecosystem that want to help accelerate innovation in the marketplace.
Anything to that? So I want to ask something on that. So for folks who are not in the hardware business, it's probably a good baseline to establish that even the most fastest moving company that's doing hardware, from the time they concept and build devices at retail, a consumer device, is at best a year. Right? And that was design, manufacturing, and testing, and certification, all that stuff. So everybody talks to me about innovation. But the reality is what we're seeing in the marketplace, Apple launches a new device, and there's an ad rush to copy that device and get it out there. So how do you innovate as a device manufacturer while still reacting to the marketplace where things like the iPhone are incredibly successful?
Yeah, I think I started to allude to it. I didn't really get to it. With the adoption of QNX, since it's an RTOS and since it's been around for about 25 years, and it's in so many different kinds of things, what we decided to do as a company was not just focus on phones necessarily, right? QNX is embedded in lottery machines, Cisco routers, nuclear power plants. 70% of the automobiles on the road today are running QNX. Many people are familiar with General Motors, OnStar, where QNX is there, and there for 10 years powering that. So, and we're in Audi and just all kinds of vehicles. So, kind of what we did is we took maybe a step back, or you could argue a couple steps back, and started building a platform that we could really innovate on beyond just phones. And that's kind of what we've been calling mobile computing anyway so far. And there's still a lot to be said with that story. It's not fully communicated, I think, anywhere in any handset manufacturer yet. But for us, what we're doing is adopting an operating system that empowers people to think beyond the device and communicate with lots of different things around it. And the QNX RTOS is a fantastic, very lightweight, extremely high performance device, and then building a rich developer ecosystem around it to allow developers to build whatever they want. So we have the most compliant HTML5 runtime out there, WebKit runtime. We have, POSIX compliant C++ capability with a really nice UI toolkit. We've got Air, so if you're an Air developer. We also have an Android runtime, which I launched before I moved to evangelism. The last product I launched was our Android runtime.
Especially on that note, I do have a separate question about operating systems. I would like to come back to that point. Let's connect that. But to move along, I have a question. Maybe the basis and canonical guys could answer. Well, everyone's feedback, of course, is welcome. So you guys are relatively new in the space, right? Both in the wearable space and in the mobile device space. And you're entering a market that has a lot of barriers built into it, both for competitive and regulatory reasons. And those markets are not optimized for efficiency, to say the least. So if you look at the telephone market, for example, right? The operators are still driving a lot of features, pricing, right? You have regulatory issues around and legal issues around what you can open source, right? So there's a lot of barriers there. So how do you guys go rapidly in an environment where your cards really are stacked against newcomers and they're stacked against smaller companies?
Sure. That's a good question. I think in terms of barriers, regulatory environments are not necessarily the biggest friction points for somebody like my basis. I think in the health and fitness wearable space, the FDA and getting sort of medical device grade approval is maybe one of the biggest hurdles, if that's the market that you really want to go towards. I think the current wearable space has decided to play in a more popular kind of mass market area where we're going to be addressing like sort of more general fitness applications than going straight into, say, a very specific medical monitoring market. So we would look to do entry into medical monitoring once we establish a foothold in a more general market. But I think that the primary barriers around innovation, at least at this stage, particularly in the wearables market, are less about regulatory, although there's certainly device certification issues if you want to expand internationally, but more about just trying to understand the space itself. I mean, I think that there's enough competition right now, there's enough innovation in terms of form factor of different types of wearable devices. There's trying to guess where the third-party software ecosystem is going to go, what sorts of APIs it offers. All of these sorts of pieces are very much in play right now. And I think that trying to understand how to position oneself and how to innovate against those are probably the bigger questions to ask oneself. And then also for a company of startup scale, just being able to deal with custom manufacturing is a huge challenge just in and of itself. That's probably the primary first order that you really want to try and tackle.
I think it's a great question as well. My perspective here, and I think our perspective with Ubuntu is, there are multiple layers to this problem. So one is the barriers to innovation. Our view is that basically developers are what's driving the world. Like when developers are unblocked and they can write awesome applications and they can write awesome code, then that's how things move forward. The barriers tend to come into the internal politics of organizations and how fast they can move and how all of their different pieces of their chain are connected. And we've seen over the last 10 years a huge amount of disruption with Linux. Linux completely changed the technology industry because it provided a platform in which people could deliver real value with a more limited level of cost. So when people started investing in the Linux kernel, it meant that companies were open to compete when they couldn't compete beforehand. And my view is that we're seeing something very similar in the mobile world in the sense of there isn't a huge amount of choice in terms of platforms for OEMs and carriers to deliver. And there is a huge opportunity to create a more collaborative model around those platforms. So what Linux opened up was people could collaborate, they could work together with their competitors to deliver value. And I think there's an opportunity, that's what we're trying to present with Ubuntu, is that this is an environment where you can actually work with other people who work with other organizations. I'd say the second area here as well is differentiation. Everybody's terrified of fragmentation. Obviously Apple's not in this game. This is very much of an Android world to a reasonable extent. And people want to be able to differentiate while not tying themselves up in support knots. When, my wife had an Android phone and I had an Android phone, they were completely different experiences. So to me, the real innovation needs to happen. How can these carriers differentiate from each other while maintaining a consistent platform? And that was one of the key problems that we set out to solve as well. But to me, it's still a transitionary period. And I think we'll get there, but we need to enable great developers and we need to confront the issues head on.
That's great. And we'll come back to that because one of the things I want to ask you about, you mentioned collaboration areas several times with the operators. We've seen in the past areas where OEMs and operators will try to collaborate together. There haven't been huge successes in that area for a variety of reasons, so I'll come back to that. But since we have an operator in the room on stage, so as Telefonica, you're one of the largest operators in the world. How do you define innovation? How do you innovate under the weight of your established business? Now we all know Telefonica itself is made of lots of vertical groups, focused on lots of different things, but the outside world, you're one company. So given this weight that you have to carry your existing business, how do you innovate and how do you do that without alienating your existing business, and your existing partners, and your existing customers?
So, good question as well. So for those of you who don't know Telefonica, we, as Victor mentioned, we are one of the world's largest carriers. So we have 300 million subscribers in LATAM, UK, Germany, and parts of Europe. So you may know O2, UK and Germany, or Movistar in Spain. So I think, to answer your question, Victor, I think one of the bold steps Telefonica took was to create a whole new digital entity. So Telefonica Digital is focused on how you monetize the infrastructure and a lot of this legacy equipment that sits in network today. So Telefonica, we don't just sell devices. Telefonica Digital is now looking at initiatives such as big data. How do you monetize the breadth and depth of information that Telefonica has around subscribers? How do you, for example, help Best Buy identify whether they should build a store on Townsend Street or on Market Street because of footfall of traffic at a certain time of day with a certain demographic of subscriber? Issues like end-to-end, Firefox OS, and other initiatives that Telefonica Digital is driving are really reshaping the way carriers and operators act around the world. And I think Telefonica has taken a bold step to create a digital entity focused on monetizing digital. We still clearly sell and need to sell millions of devices, but I think creating a dedicated team focused on digital, taking risks. I think Telefonica Digital is a big risk for us. It was actually one of our senior members of our UK entity that became the CEO of Digital, and he admits it's a big risk, starting this new entity, investing a huge amount of resources into digitizing the data and information that we have and grow digital services. So I think it requires dedication and focus and risk taking. And with Firefox OS, again, we are the first carrier, or were the first carrier to launch Firefox OS devices. We launched in Spain, Venezuela and Colombia, and other parts of LATAM and Brazil will launch later this year. Again, in Spain, having an €89 device is a risk for us, given our demographic in that market. But it's a risk that we're taking, and it's paying off. In LATAM, the penetration of smartphones is still 25-26%. And again, we're showing leadership by launching Firefox devices, being the first carrier, launching a device at a price point that we think is going to work for its demographic.
So, Simon, to your point, Telefonica still controls huge parts of the market in certain parts of the world. And not just Telefonica, obviously, but in most parts of the world, the network operator is still a distribution point for how a phone gets to a consumer, for better or worse. And telco operators traditionally have not been shy about using that power in order to be able to dictate what phones do, what features they have and don't have, what prices they have, and so forth. Now, I think we've seen Apple as maybe the first one who've actually kind of broken through in that a little bit. Not 100% maybe, but certainly further than most people have gotten. But it'd be interesting in hearing from the device people on stage. How do you view that world with the operators still being so dominant, yet have necessity being large and slow moving? How do you find that middle ground as a device manufacturer?
Sure. So I would agree that the operators today still do have a disproportionate amount of influence, but certainly for CTE, I think one of the strategies that we've been trying to do in terms of innovation and building our brand recognition is to maybe try and go through more market open devices. So not locked to a carrier. And you're starting to see Google pushing this a little bit. I mean, certainly they're not necessarily with their Google Nexus devices and then their Google Play Edition devices for the HTC One and the Samsung Galaxy 4. And so coincidentally, today CT announced that we're going to be releasing our Firefox OS phone in the US and the UK via eBay for $99. So sometime later this year, you'll be able to buy a $99 Firefox OS phone. So for ZTE's standpoint, we might not sell a lot of volume, but it's a way to test these new products in the marketplace to see what is appealing to the operator, to the individuals, and then having that feedback feed into the operators. And then so that's one way that OEMs can test out innovation and not necessarily put out devices that are for the operator channel that can be a little bit more risk-taking and try out different innovations.
So, John, you guys are building your first phone. What are your conversations without obviously revealing confidentially? What are your conversations with operators looking like? What are operators saying about building an open source phone?
So the conversations that we've had so far have been very positive. I think most of the operators were surprised when we entered the market because Ubuntu was a long heritage on the desktop and particularly on the cloud as well. But one of the things that most of the operators identified was the challenges that face the market right now in terms of fragmentation, in terms of the cost of shipping, the as well, in terms of the hardware requirements around shipping and the distribution channels. So the responses that we had when we did this Bullets, this huge tour and went around, talked to each of the different carrier operators to explore whether they would be interested in Ubuntu. And there was a resounding yes. It was a resounding, this is something we're definitely interested in. We want to explore it further, because obviously it's a big investment, as these guys will no doubt testify, there's a big investment to focus on the new products. We tried to, one of the core goals that we set out to do was not to lock ourselves in a hut and presume what the challenges in the market were. We've always tried to be responsive to the reality of the world that surrounds us. And that's one of the reasons why we set up the Carrier Advisory Group, was we felt like we had a good idea of the challenges that companies are facing in terms of monetization, in terms of billing, payments, around content, things such as that. But ever since we set up the Carrier Advisory Group, it's helped to enrich our experience of what we need to focus on. And that's resulted in a really fast turnaround, because Canonical is a company, we're about 570 people right now. So we're big, but we're still small enough to be nimble. So we can modify our strategy, focus on new areas as and when the demand comes in. And now we've got most of the major carriers signed up. It provides us with a pretty accurate representation across the board of the problems that we need to solve.
What's your guys' view on that? You've kind of seen both sides of it, actually. What is a tremendously dominant player in the marketplace, and now trying to regrow that market share? Where do you see your interest in the operators, and where do you see that rate of innovation and growth being either helped or hindered by the operators?
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant question, and I wish I could answer it better than I'm going to answer it, but spoiler alert. The thing is, BlackBerry has always been very, very close with carriers, right? It's been written about a million times. Like, we enter our carrier relationships as a partnership, not a dictator, right? And I think the carriers worldwide are all very open to new possibilities, right? Ubuntu, Windows, and BlackBerry, and whatever else is out there on Firefox OS. And the reason is they don't want there just to be two players, right? And I think all carriers say that. You get down to a duopoly or a monopoly, and it's just not good for anybody. So we work very, very closely with carriers, as you might imagine, on lots of innovative products together. They don't always come to fruition, but like one of the previous panelists said, we don't presume to know what the customers or consumers are going to want either a few years out. Although we have some ideas about how we're innovating across multiple devices, like I told you, and I think carriers are, of course, very interested in how they can play into that space. So we're exploring a lot of those types of opportunities.
Great. So let's jump to talking about operating systems. I think everyone on this stage, except Ethan, has an agenda around an operating system. So if I asked you guys what the best one was, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer would be. So let's ask that question a little differently. Clearly there's two dominant operating systems in the market space, and clearly we think there's a need for at least one more. Clearly yours is, whoever's answering the question, yours is the best. How do you go about building a true community around that operating system? We've seen that being a vital necessity of organic growth, build that community. How do you define what the ecosystem looks like, and how do you grow it? And Ethan, I'll let you start. I know you don't have an operating system, but you guys are still working in the same space of building a community and building an ecosystem eventually around what you're doing. So I'd love to hear from your side, how do you guys do it? Let's let these guys take over.
Sure. All right. Well, let me preface my answer by first saying it's a great question. Let's see. Well, so community is like a really big term too, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of communities. I'm assuming you mean developer community?
What does the community mean to you? For some people it means a consumer community, for some it's a developer community. So from your perspective as basis, what does community mean to you?
Well, so first and foremost, we are a consumer-facing device. So consumer community is our primary goal. And without tipping our hat too much, we are certainly eyeballing what is a nascent and growing developer community around wearable devices. So a number of other players in the market have already opened up SDKs. Needless to say, wearable computing, in order for it to really, be fruitful, it has to work in concert with other devices. It's sort of like the next harbinger of ambient intelligence and all these really fun things we're working towards. So both communities are really important. So how do you go about developing those? Well, the consumer side is about building a very good consumer experience. It's about being able to understand very clearly what a problem is in the market, what a problem is that you're solving for your users, and being very single-minded about that, and understanding how those users evolve. The wearable market is very new, so we're dealing with an early adopter community. There's a bunch of different people with different interests in that community. You've got sort of quantified selfers, you've got fitness junkies, so, and as that hits broader and broader adoption, those markets change. So the question is really, what are you solving for there? But you develop this sort of responsiveness around that. And when you find that you're doing a good job of providing a solution, you double down, you double down, you double down, and hopefully you found a very broad-reaching solution. In terms of developer communities, there's a number of different types of developers as well. There's software development, and then there's complementary hardware that can also work. And I think in the wearable space, if you look at standards and protocols, there's like scales that talk to your watch, that talk to your phone. So hardware interoperability and a hardware ecosystem also has to be considered in addition to some of the obvious stuff around just getting software developers to play nice with your device. You as a wearable device are producing very, very interesting contextual data, and everybody wants a piece of that. And in order for that contextual data to be relevant to that user outside of what you can reflect back to them about its usage, it has to start talking to other things. I wish that I was incredibly awesome about building developer communities, and I knew exactly what to do, but really, it's about, again, you begin to provide value back into that ecosystem. You identify what that value is, whether it's specific data that you offer, whether it's you have a good user base, whether you have something that can offset technology costs for other developers, and you make that very well accessible. And just as you treat your consumer audience, you listen very carefully, you find what you're successful at, you double down, you double down. So,
So John, ZTE supports several operating systems, in Android and Firefox OS. How do you guys view the world of community and ecosystems? How do you define those? How do you build those? And how do you build those so that they support not only the Android and Firefox, but also support ZTE as a company?
Sure. So, we do support both Android and Firefox OS. Firefox OS is, we were the first to come out with a phone for that, and we are championing and working closely with Qualcomm and Telefonica to get the first devices out there to be really popular. But we're also relying on, Mozilla to be the lead champion, because they are the ones developing the Firefox OS platform as well as the developer community. But Mozilla has a stake in getting input from other providers, both hardware OEMs such as ZTE, as well as operators, as well as independent software developers. So we bring our perspective to the Mozilla community through our conversations with Mozilla, and certainly our engagement and understanding of what the operator needs and what they're asking. We will feed that back also into Mozilla. So it's really participating and trying to influence the direction of Firefox OS in terms of what the OEM needs, as well as what we're hearing from our end users.